I like that. Short but sweet. I like it to the point.
Of course.
Welcome to another edition of Folks Talking Sports. The Houston Roundbar Review presents Folks Talking Sports, sponsored by the Saxenian family. I'm Chris Gardner of Houston Roundbar Review. Joining me right now is the youngster of the group, or one of the youngsters of the group, Andy Yanez from the Community Impact newspaper. We will be joined in a few minutes, hopefully, by the other part of the trio, Willie Gibson. Take care of some dad duties. Should be joining us around 7:30. And also about that time, James Mueller from the Daily Cougar will also be joining us. And at that point, Mr. Yanez will be signing off because he has to take care of his real job. But for now, Mr. Yanez, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're going to just kind of split it up here. Once again, like I said, Folks Talking Sports, sponsored by the Saxenian family. And Andy, because of everything, today's show being kind of in flux, I'm going to do a segment now sponsored by Steve Saxenian and the family because of it's related to what we're going to talk about. So might as well just get it out there and split it up. So this Houston Cougars segment is made possible by the Saxenian family. Saturday afternoon, the Houston Cougars women's basketball team will host the New Mexico Lobos at 4 p.m. inside the Fertitta Center. Houston is 1-2 this season after a 69-66 overtime loss to UTA Wednesday night. That's Texas Arlington. New Mexico is 3-0 with wins over Lamar, Northern Mexico, and Prairie View A&M. Men's side, we're going to talk about it now, but as Andy knows and as viewers know, the Houston Cougars men's hoops team will hit the road for the first time this season to compete in the Maui Invitational, which will take place in Vegas because of COVID problems in Maui. The tournament will take place November 22nd through 24th. The Cougs will face Butler on November 22nd at 3:30 p.m. Central Time. That game will be on ESPN2. From there, the Cougs will face the winner or loser. Should be winner, but it'll either face Texas A&M or Wisconsin on Tuesday, November 23rd. With a win, the Cougs will face A&M or Wisconsin at 4 p.m. on ESPN. If they happen to lose, they'll face the loser at 1:30 p.m. on ESPN2. The tourney will end on Wednesday, November 24th, at a time and against an opponent to be determined. The other four teams in the tourney are Oregon, Chaminade, St. Mary's of California, and Notre Dame. Once again, that segment was brought to you by the Saxenian family, Steve Saxenian and family. We'll have one more talk about football because that's where James Mueller will come in. We'll talk about tomorrow's game with U of H and Memphis. Mr. Yanez, we were there Tuesday for U of H and Virginia. I was shocked, man. I was shocked at how dominant U of H was in the win over Virginia. And we might as well get it out there right now. Houston won 67-47. Brandon Thomas, welcome. My man's done with the Rockets. Hold on, Brandon. We might get to the Rockets later on toward the end of the show.
I'm seeing him. We're giving him a space to vent about everything.
Yeah, we're going to talk more.
He's done with silence.
Cougs and stuff for now. And then Rockets toward the end of the show, possibly. But for sure, Saturday evening during my Let's Talk Rocket stream.
Don't apologize.
Where Rocket fans are just chiming in and they need to vent because the Rockets have lost 13 in a row. They're 1-14.
Including to OKC.
OKC, who's played well so far this year, and they can't stop Blue Dort. They couldn't last night. But the Cougs won Tuesday 67-47 over Virginia. It really wasn't that close. I'm just going to play about a minute from Virginia head coach Tony Bennett's post-game comments. But this minute, hopefully everything sounds good. You'll get his take on scheduling Houston to begin with, and then Houston's defense being possibly one of the best defensive teams Virginia will face this entire season.
How do you think we handled that? We decided, you make these scheduling games and spring. Boy, sounds like a good idea. Going to Houston would be good for our guys to go into a tough environment, play against those players, and then you get up to the game and you watch. You're like, whew, this is going to be tough. You know that, but honestly, you got to go through this stuff. Look, we're a newer team. We've got a ways to go, and I think it's important for us to be in this setting and now look at the areas we really have to address and hopefully move the needle and get better and better, taking care of the ball, handling things. I don't know. Maybe we'll play some teams that are as good defensively. I don't know if we'll play many better than this because they're special that way, but they're just good all around. And I know they're new too, so I'm not trying to say anything but that. But this was important for us to be in this setting and grow. We lost to Navy, played better against Radford, came in here and got our ears pinned back. And now we figure it out. That's all you can do.
Tony Bennett said it, pretty succinctly. They got their ears pinned back. I'm not surprised U of H won. I'm surprised at how dominant they looked in the game over Virginia, based on a little bit of how they've struggled with Hofstra for 30 or plus minutes of that game. The defense was not nearly as good, first of all, Hofstra, as it was against Virginia. What are your thoughts on what you saw Tuesday night?
No, yeah, for sure. I was, like you said, Chris, surprised that, there was no moment where the game was close. Houston jumped out to an 8-0 lead early off the 2 threes. Marcus Sessions, Kyler Edwards went off early on. I think they started off. I think Kyler Edwards was the ones that didn't miss like his first 4 or 5 threes, which was absurd with honestly how far they had caught from beyond the arc. But they jumped on him early. They never had any letdown like we got from the clip there. Bennett talked about how strong the defense was for Houston. I believe they forced Virginia into like 17 turnovers throughout the game, and even then, like Virginia always seemed like they looked like they were lost on offense at times. And anytime they would get a shot off, everything was difficult for them. And give credit to Houston and the way they came out because they were prepared. And you heard Marcus Sasser talk about it after the game, how the way he was coming into it in terms of what the atmosphere was going to be like. He called it a bit of an NCAA tournament type of atmosphere game, and they showed out. And Virginia, I know they lost to Navy. They seemed like they're struggling early, but that's still a very good program, especially historically, and to dominate them the way they did. It seems like Houston's grown up in the week after they had that opener against Hofstra.
It is, and surprisingly, we'll find out more. Hopefully, we'll find out a little bit more details on all of the injuries that the Cougs dealt with during the game Tuesday, and maybe dealing with for a while, because we saw Kyler Edwards with leg cramping up. Look to us because we didn't hear anything official announced from the team. That's what it looked like, was his legs cramped up on him. Marcus Sasser crashed to the floor, ran into the basket support. Fabian White, I'm not sure what it was, but he seemed like he couldn't stretch out and, get comfortable. Josh Carlton, something wrong with his knee. Reggie Chaney has a knuckle issue on his left hand, wrist, something is wrapped up, and he banged it again during the game. And as long as he plays, it's the type of injury that if he gets it hit, the ball hits it wrong, someone hits him, it's going to flare up and cause him pain. And of course, Jamon Mark, who hasn't played yet, the shoulder issue. You and I talked about it for a while. We noticed how his form on his shot almost, 2 months ago, looked different. And you and James found out that Jamon's having issues with his shoulder, and he's still having issues. We're not sure when he's going to come back. Ramon Walker, I think, is going to have surgery on his tendon on his finger, on one of his fingers, and be out for at least a month. And then Robbie Armbrester's dealing with knee issues. So that's half the team, man.
Yeah, you just listed off half the roster. That's like eight or so players. That's absurd. Even last year at the COVID season, I think they had that one time whenever they had the outbreak in mid-December, where I think Kelvin said they didn't even have enough to have like 5 players on the court. They might be close to that, and not because of COVID, just because of actual, injuries, which is absurd to have so many injuries. And honestly, it's barely the first week of the season. It's absurd, but obviously, of course, they've been practicing for so long. You kind of wonder if, how long that they'll have to recover.
And And the issue is, and Coach Sampson is correct. And for folks who don't know, that's our Twitter handle for the show, Folks Talk Sports. You can hit us up there. Each of us have our individual Twitter handles, but we're trying to broaden ourselves, broaden the show's reach and stuff. So start following us on Folks Talk Sports on Twitter. But Coach Sampson, he's just, injuries are part of the basketball, they're part of the game. Sometimes you have a season where it's just, you're lucky, no injuries. And sometimes you have injuries throughout the season you have to deal with. And he's just like, he coaches the players who can play, and I understand that. It's true. But the fans they want to know, man, when are they going to when are they going to get healthy? When are the guys going to be? We don't know yet. Coach Sampson's going to talk to media Friday morning, and maybe he'll provide us some more information, some updates on the health status of some of the players. Time will tell how they'll look, because if they're healthy, they're going to go to the tournament again. Should make some noise, and then we'll see how far they're able to go. But if some of these injuries linger, to key people, who knows how that's going to impact the team this year? What do you think?
No, yeah, for sure. And what Calvin Sampson has said, where that really impacts them is at practice, because they don't have the depth to be able to fully do what they want to do in practice. Like if eight of the players are missing, I mean that only leaves, how many players do they have active? That probably leaves what, 6, 7?
6 or 7, yeah. We count Ryan Elvin, and I'm not sure, based on Ryan's class schedule, if he's able to attend all the practices. Kieran Powell is going to redshirt. I think he can still practice. He can't play with the team.
Yeah.
So they can't go 5-on-5. That's for sure. And definitely they cannot go 5-on-5 situation where it's basically each group of 5 has a different color jersey, and they scrimmage match up. And then the winners of that 5 for a drill advance to the next 5 on the other end of the court and go back and forth like that for competition's sake. So they can't do that. So we'll see how this all plays out. But Coach Sampson has been coaching a long time. I'm sure he's dealt with injuries, the teams before, and he'll adjust to this as well. Butler, I think, coming off a loss last night, I think. So they're struggling to score points. If a team is struggling to score points, the University of Houston, when they're locked in on defense, is not a team you want to face. Because if you're struggling to score points and you haven't faced U of H yet, then you should struggle to score points again facing U of H. What do you think?
No, for sure. That's something that Houston has shown in all 3 of their games. Even in that game against Hofstra, really the biggest issue in that game was they couldn't finish their defensive possessions with rebounds. And that's something they've cleaned up against Rice, against Virginia. So, I mean, like you said, they're struggling before they face Houston. It's probably not going to bode well once they have to play the Cougars now. The depth is going to be the key issue right there, because they're now it's starting to affect some of their big name, like Fabian White, Kyler Edwards. Those are 2 big names that, and obviously they haven't even had Tremont Mark the whole season. But if they're have to miss for whatever reason, when you showed what Kyler Edwards was able to do against Virginia, that he's a big part of their offense, and Fabian White too in their front court. So those are going to be names to watch, just to see if they have to miss any time or how they've been impacted. And for Houston's sake, they're probably hoping that it's nothing too serious.
And it's interesting, after I think Kyler Edwards struggled to make threes in the red and white scrimmage and against Hofstra, and folks were wondering, it was just a slump, because he bounced back. Rice had a great shooting game against Virginia, despite the leg cramps. I mean, I think he made 5 threes against Virginia, and we could see, especially toward the end of the second half, he had problems walking, running up and down the floor, but he gutted it out, made his threes. You can see the benefit of him. And we haven't even talked about Marcus Sasser and how well he's played so far in these 3 games. And here he is coming from, I'm not sure if he's where he is, but James Mueller was at the Guy V. Lewis Development Center
Daily Cougar
talking to some basketball players for a story, because they had availability this evening. So we're going to bring him in. James, you ready, sir? Here we go. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. How are y'all?
Doing great.
Doing good.
Who did you talk to? Who did you interview?
I talked to Jamal Shedd, Josh Carlton, and Fabian White.
Did you talk to him yourself one-on-one, or was it like a group of media there?
Chris Baldwin was there. I talked to Jamal one-on-one, but then me and him both talked to Fabian and Josh. Yeah.
Did they give updates on their health?
No, I mean, so as far as I could tell, Tremont was doing more drills today than in previous times, as far as I could tell from times I've been in there. Fabian seemed all okay. He didn't seem like it was much of an issue. He was shooting around, looked fine. Reggie still had his hand taped up pretty heavily. And Kyler was out there doing shooting drills when they let us in to watch the end of it. So it seems like there was no major lingering issues. They're probably still, not 100%, but yeah, I mean, they were all practicing.
James and Andy, did y'all notice at the end of the game Tuesday, game is well in hand, Jamal Shead has 4 fouls. Coach Sampson subs out, Marcus, the rest of the starters, puts in what's left of the banged up team. Jamal Shead, for some reason, decided to attack the basket, got called for a charging foul, which meant his 5th foul, out of the game. And I was thinking to myself, what the hell, Jamal? Don't you know your team is banged up right now and you don't need to get yourself fouled out of a game? Kelvin Sampson, Coach Sampson had to look at who am I going to put in the game now? Because he did not want to put in Marcus Sasser. Ryan Elvin was in the game already. He didn't want to put in Fabian. He didn't want to put in Kyler. So we went back to Josh Carlton just to say, all right, Josh, I know you're hurt, man, but just go out there for 30 seconds. Did anybody think about asking Jamal about that? Because that's one thing I should have gone to today's availability. And I would just ask Jamal, man, what were you thinking? What the hell was that? Because your teammates are banged up, man. Why are you attacking the basket to begin with? The game was over. Another opponent might have been upset with him trying to score. And might have been like, okay. A conference team like Memphis, they might have been like, okay, Jamal, we'll see what you do come Memphis. You come to Memphis, we're gonna get you back with this, trying to run up the score, whatever mentality. But it just made no sense to me why he was trying to attack the basket with a 20-point lead and less than a minute to go. Did y'all notice that?
Yeah. I mean, he looked like he was trying to feed Ryan, but he was out of control. And you don't want, I mean, in garbage time like that, you don't want to add any unnecessary coaching decisions.
And I commend Coach Sampson for not just having a fit on the court. He may have said something to Jamal after the game, but I was like, Jamal, you know how he does sometimes? Think.
Yeah.
Think. Jamal was thinking right there. Gentlemen, all 3 of us made it to Tuesday's game. James, I'm not sure how far if you even have to drive at all to get to the game. You just walked, whatever. But the traffic, the construction traffic around school is a nightmare. So just what are your thoughts on it? James only got 1 football game left. But just what are your thoughts? Have you heard from people on campus, administrators, decision makers about the traffic construction taking place now during actual, school fall semester?
Yeah, I mean, I know they started earlier, I think they started late last spring, since campus was still only at 50-something% with COVID.
Yeah.
But it's taken a long time, and it's been, I mean, I've had a lot of I've heard a lot of complaints. I know several professors who commute, they're always like, I spend 20 minutes just on Colin trying to get to my parking garage just because it goes down to 1 lane. The lights don't last long. So, I mean, it's definitely not ideal for these games, especially when you got 7,000 people trying to pack the Fertitta Center all at once. I mean, Houston traffic's bad enough. So to add that, on campus is just a nightmare.
Is it bad? Is it worse? I'm assuming it's worse for football.
Well, yeah, I mean, they have more people. So yeah. I mean, like you said, I obviously don't have to drive since I'm on campus. I just walk over there, but they're all pretty backed up. They shut down certain areas for football too, for like tailgating and stuff. So it's even.
Yeah, they shut down. What's the name of that street? Is it Cudlin or is it Elgin?
They shut down part of Colon, like half of it.
Yeah.
And they don't have, and the police officer, security, directing traffic. Tuesday, I saw 2 uniforms. They had no flashlights. So how could drivers really see them, because they're wearing dark color uniforms, see them directing traffic if you don't have a flashlight? And the planning wasn't great. Kudos to the people who did show up. Once again, I'm going to put it up there. But while Andy's still on with us for these next few minutes, James, let's talk about Friday's game, football game, U of H, Memphis. Because Andy, before you leave, I'm going to ask you if you're going to guarantee it or not. So, but just thoughts on it's senior night for U of H seniors. So just thoughts on the matchup, thoughts on the chance for the football team to go undefeated conference play, regular season, undefeated at home. Just what's it look like, guys?
You want to go first, Andy?
No, James, you got the floor.
Okay. I mean, it's like you said, it's a big game. They could be the second team in football team in program history to go undefeated in conference play. Holgerson mentioned that Monday when he talked to the media, and he said it's something he's emphasized to his team, to leave a legacy like that. Memphis is 5-5, but Houston, Memphis in every sport always comes down to something crazy. Last year, Houston scored with like 20-something seconds. Memphis drove down, kicked a long field goal. Memphis has won 5 straight against Houston in football. So the Cougars, that's another of the players I talked to, especially the ones that have been around a long time. They're like, I've never beaten Memphis when I'm here. So it's an extra chip on their shoulder, more motivation. And then obviously they want to play the conference championship game at TDECU. So they need help from SMU or ECU to beat Cincinnati. But if you beat Memphis, then you're guaranteeing that if Cincinnati loses Saturday or the week after, then you get to host the conference championship game. So there's a lot at stake. Big game. It should be a fun one. Just Houston, Memphis, like I said, it's always exciting.
Andy, what are your thoughts, man?
No, James hit all the points. I mean, like you said, would only be the second UH team to ever go undefeated in conference. I believe the only team that did that was in 2011, correct? If I'm wrong,
2011.
going back to the Case Keenum days, which is astonishing for, like, you go back to the 80s and even the 70s, what those programs were able to establish. In the 70s, I believe they were independent, correct? Or when did they join the Southwest? They joined the Southwest
mid-70s.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I mean, even then, like in the 80s, or even when they had Andre Ware, like that's something that none of those teams were able to do all that time. So it'd certainly be impressive. Even I mean, even with the schedule that we mentioned before the season started, it's not necessarily a gauntlet that they had to go through, but it doesn't matter what sport it is. Undefeated. I mean, you've seen the top teams in college football any given Saturday or Friday, Thursday, whenever they play. It always seems like there's one week where it doesn't matter what the record is. It seems like you could be overthrown, and Houston has been able to overcome those games against South Florida and that game against East Carolina that was delayed like 5 hours for the rain, which is absurd. They were able to survive those kind of, those games where it seems like nothing's going right. Everything's going the other team's way. So they've been impressive. And certainly, I mean, after this game against Memphis, they have UConn, who, like you'd expect UConn football, they're having another bad season. So if they can get past Memphis and end that losing streak, which I believe it dates back all the way to the Tom Herman era. That was the last time they beat Memphis in the regular season, which it's absurd. So if they can get that win, secure their first double-digit win season since 2015 or 2016, one of those years, just going back to they're getting into uncharted territory where only the best UH teams have been able to accomplish any of this. So it'd be a great feat, and especially for Dana Holgerson, who after that Texas Tech game, we talked about he was in the hot seat, and like you were wondering what it would take for him to get fired after just going 3 years into his 5-year contract, and he certainly turned around the program. He's having a good position, and I talked to Dayon about this last week during our podcast. I mean, to be honest, it's quite astonishing turnaround that they were able to do in such a season. And right now, if they can beat Memphis, honestly, they'll probably be playing with house money if Cincinnati takes care of their business, because all the pressure will be on Cincinnati, especially if they go undefeated, to try to take care of business. And I mean, the last hope for them to get into the college football playoff will be to beat a ranked Houston team who they just cracked the top 25 finally in the college football playoff. So if they can take care of business against Memphis, and barring an upset against UConn, which has happened before, so it's not even a gimme, but it looks like Houston and Dana Holgorsen will be in a really good position. So big game coming up on Friday.
And let's answer a few of Christian Martinez's questions. Basketball question about the Cougs basketball team. What day does the team leave for Vegas? Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. We don't know where they're staying, and even if we did, we wouldn't say that out publicly. Let the team say that if they want to, but we're not going to say that unless the team made it public themselves. We see them as a team, the school to beat in the Invitational. Now, yes, based on how BYU masked Oregon Tuesday evening as well, because Houston Cougars blasted Virginia, and then later Tuesday night, the BYU Cougars blasted Oregon. So, yeah, I guess so. Based on that performance by both teams, Houston would be the favorite. But once again, how healthy are they going to be? I think that's going to play a part of it. 3 games, 3 days. The injuries, if they are significant enough to keep guys out, may hurt them. But yes, I do think Houston Cougars are the favorite to win the Maui Invitational. And then, James, I'll ask you this. Another question from Christian Martinez. Do we prefer SMU beating Cincinnati and Houston hosting, or them hosting championship undefeated?
Okay, I'll give you 2 perspectives. Personally, I'd love it for Cincinnati to be undefeated, because then I get to go.
Fair.
It's more selfish reasons, but but from a Houston program, obviously playing in the conference championship is big no matter what, and they'd love to. Being able to knock off an undefeated Cincinnati team would be huge, but they'd much rather prefer for the game to be on campus, to have that home crowd advantage. That's just what you always want to play, these big games at home if you can. So, yeah.
And that would be, the championship game is going to be December 4th, Saturday. It's just a question of whether it's going to be here or in Cincinnati. And fan-wise, it'd be great for it to be at TDECU Stadium. But for James, I'm with James. Let James make a trip. Let James go to Cincinnati to take care of that.
That's going to keep that money anyway, so might as well use it up.
So, and boy... Okay, I know all 3 of us, 2 of us are alums, and James will be an alum. From a conference perspective, do you want Cincinnati to win with the chance to still be in the Final Four of the college football playoff? Or would you want Houston to win the championship of the American, definitely knocking out Cincinnati, and no American team being in CFP, no Group of 5 team being in a college football playoff?
I think from a conference perspective, obviously it's a lose-lose, because it's basically the Big 12 championship part 2 with Houston, Cincinnati. But
Mike.
But I think if you're the American, you want Cincinnati to go undefeated and have a chance to get into that spot, just because then you can use the pitch. Oh, it's possible to not be a Group of 5 and make the playoffs, even though the conference is getting significantly weaker once all these schools leave. But then they have that pitch. We made it before, you never know what could happen. We've shown it's possible. Come join us. We're going to be we're that power 6,
Yeah, that's true. What do you say, Andy?
Yeah, can you repeat the question? Did you mean from a conference perspective? Would you?
Either way, from our perspective,
from
your perspective, Houston,
yeah,
Mike Oresco, whatever.
Yeah, well, I'll go both. I think if you're Houston, to be honest, with the season that they've had, and something that Dana Holgorsen and some of the players have said, that they wish they could play that first game of the season again against Texas Tech back there. They're pretty confident that if they played now, it would be a much different outcome. To be honest, I think they would prefer to have Cincinnati undefeated and have to go up there. They played them last season, and as you'd expect, it was lopsided. So I think this Houston team specific, they've kind of embraced that bit of an underdog type of mentality after they lost to Texas Tech. It's something that Donovan Mutin talked to reporters after their past game against Temple that they beat. That after that game, they had a team meeting. They just embraced all the work that they had put in. They said they weren't going to lose again, and I mean, they haven't lost again. They won 9 straight in a row. They've kind of embraced that mentality even after one of the early games. I think it was Mutin again who had said, anyone outside the locker room doesn't believe in the Houston team, but they've kind of rallied around that. And I think going up to Cincinnati, especially if one of the top 4 teams ends up losing by then and Cincinnati has a real shot at making the playoff, I mean, you can't get up there to play Spoilers on the road. There's no better feeling than shutting down an opponent and ending any chance that honestly would be history of a G5 school making the college football playoff. But I get James' perspective as well in terms of having that big game on campus and all the financial ties that come with that, and hopefully having a true sellout for the first time in forever. Feels like at TDCU Stadium. And from the conference perspective, you're Mike Oresco. Yeah, like James said, I guess best case scenario, and it's kind of hard because you're kind of hurting yourself either way, but if SMU or East Carolina can dethrone Cincinnati and you could get one of these teams that are staying to face Houston, I think there'll probably be, I don't know, that meme where I'm going to bring a meme where you have a face that's like kind of calm. It's like a mask, and then behind you can see tears. That's going to be Mike Oresco come if it's Cincinnati and Houston, because like you said, they're, like James said, it's essentially a Big 12 championship part 2, which is absurd. And honestly, for Houston, I know, Chris, you brought it up, that move might be coming sooner rather than later, depending on some people. So, I mean, it's you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're Mike Oresco.
It is. And Andy, I know you said you got to close it out. So before we let you go, what's the line on the game? Friday's game, Houston, Memphis?
I believe Houston was favored by like 5.5 points, but let me check real quick.
Because you know what I'm going to ask you. Why? After you check,
it's up to 8.5 now.
Oh, it's moved. Yeah, it's 8.5 points.
Wow. According
to CBS Sports, so Houston big, just over a touchdown favorite. And you're going to ask me to guarantee will Memphis cover the spread, or will Houston cover the spread? I think.
Okay, well, I'll make it simple for you. I'll make it simple.
Who's going to win?
Who's going to win? Do you guarantee it's winning or Memphis winning? Simple.
Yeah, last time I made a guarantee, the Braves could put a whooping on the Astros. So we'll see how my luck goes, but I'm confident. I guarantee Houston beats Memphis. They finally
guarantee.
Y'all heard it.
Hogerson gets that redemption. I know John Rothstein, every time the Houston men's basketball team wins, he likes to say Kelvin Sampson, the Houston redemption. Well, someone's going to have to start tweeting out Dana Hogerson, the Houston redemption, if he goes undefeated in conference, because, I mean, give credit where it's due, man. That's an impressive turnaround, especially where they were after week 1. But, yeah, thank you guys for having me. We kind of joked about it on Tuesday during their post-game, during the men's post-game availability, becoming more of a guest than one of the co-hosts. But do I plug in my Twitter or?
Go ahead, man. Yeah, plug yourself before you got to close out. James and I can handle it until Will joins us, hopefully.
For sure. So you can follow me on Twitter at @Ayanez_5. Be sure to check out the podcast that I just mentioned at Pod Slamajama. That's PAWD. SLAMAJAMA, an homage to the old 5 Slamajama days. We're going to have a podcast up either Friday night or Saturday morning. Dayan and I will talk, break down whatever the post-game football reaction is, preview a little bit of the men's MTE in Las Vegas, and also the women's team that you mentioned, Chris. They lost a heartbreaker, and they should have won, to be honest, in my opinion. They had a lot of chances to close the door against UTA, and they failed to do so. So we're going to have a lot to discuss. And I believe the women's has a game on Saturday evening or Saturday afternoon too. So a lot of UH sports to discuss. So thank you guys for having me. And We'll be back next week whenever you do it. I don't think you'll have it on Thanksgiving Day. So
No, we won't. Correct.
next week, Tuesday forward, I should have time. So whenever you do it, let me know, and hopefully I can spend more time. But appreciate it.
Sounds good, man. We'll figure it out, because I just want the viewers to know that now for probably a month or two, we're going to be fluctuating with people on hosting the show and participating. So schedules are different. It's time to do what we can to keep this show going for you. And Giannis, thank you, man. Talk to you soon. Take care.
For sure.
All right, James, we're going to talk. I want to get your thoughts on it, as Andy and I talked before you hopped on. How surprised were you surprised at the U of H men's basketball dominance against Virginia Tuesday?
Yes, definitely. Virginia, I knew Virginia, they have a lot of new pieces like Houston, but especially with Tremont out, still trying to work things out. I was surprised. I thought it could go either way, but I thought it'd be one of those, uglier sort of grit and grind games. But I mean, from the start, back-to-back threes, and Houston was off, never trailed. I did not see a 20-point blowout coming at all.
It surprised me. I'm going to play the clip again. Now that Willie Gibson's about to join us, but from Coach Bennett from Virginia. Houston, I think Virginia had 12 turnovers in the first half.
Yeah.
The Cougs had 14-0 points off turnover advantage against Virginia in that first half. The game was pretty much over at halftime. It was a marquee matchup until Virginia lost its home opener. So I kind of took some of the shine off of it. They were no longer ranked top 25. And Houston against Hofstra wasn't great for the first 35 minutes, but they found a way to win. Then they blasted Rice, and then they put it together Tuesday versus Virginia and won by 20, 67-47. Willie Gibson, how are you, sir? Thank you
I'm good, sir. How are you?
For doing your dad duties and joining us.
Absolutely.
Other way. There you go. Have you gotten a score from Ohio State, Xavier? Because I was watching that before we hopped on and did our show. I know Xavier was winning last I saw.
Yeah, they were. Give me one moment. Ashley will have that.
And of course, Willie Gibson, for those who don't know, is in Ohio. Folks Talking Sports. We're national. We got two guys from Houston right now, talking with a guy from Ohio who covers the Ohio State Buckeyes and Big Ten sports. That's what we do here.
Xavier up two, 67-65, 16 seconds left.
Wow. Okay. All right. Will, James, I'm going to play the clip again from Coach Bennett, Tony Bennett, head coach of Virginia. It's about a minute long. Just some of his thoughts on from his post-game press conference Tuesday after the game. Some of his thoughts on facing Houston, scheduling Houston, and Houston's defense. Here we go.
How do you think we handled that? We decided, you make these scheduling games in spring. Boy, sound like a good idea. We're going to Houston, be good for our guys to go into a tough environment, play against those players. And then you get up to the game and you watch them like, whew, this is going to be tough. You know that. But honestly, you got to go through this stuff. Look, we're a newer team. We've got a ways to go. And I think it's important for us to be in this setting and now look at the areas we really have to address and hopefully move the needle and get better and better, taking care of the ball, handling things. I don't know. Maybe we'll play some teams that are as good defensively. I don't know if we'll play many better than this because they're special that way, but they're just good all around. And I know they're new too, so I'm not trying to say anything but that. But this was important for us to be in this setting and grow. We lost to Navy, played better against Radford, came in here and got our ears pinned back. And now we figured it out. That's all you can do.
Got their ears pinned back. Yeah. You get thumped by 20. Ears pinned back is one way to describe it. So, Will, do you have a chance to check out any of the game on Tuesday?
I saw the last moments of it. I was away on some Ohio State things, but I did see the final 5 minutes, I believe.
So, what did Jay Billis say in those 5 minutes you were able to watch?
I watched. I didn't listen.
Okay. Because apparently Billis was, glowing terms. He praised Houston's defense. James, do you have any more thoughts on what, if you heard or read anything from Jay Billis about what he said about Houston's defense?
Well, I know Chris Baldwin of Paper City got to talk to him after he was at the media availability this afternoon. And I talked to him a little bit about it. And he said Billis was just, super impressed, like you said, sending a lot of praise Houston's way. I was told that Billis will be on the call for the first 2 games of the Maui Invitational. So
okay,
if you didn't, you'll get a chance to hear him call some more Houston games. So
yeah, well, there you go. Monday, Houston Butler, ESPN2, 4:30 Eastern for you, sir. 3:30 Central. Houston Butler, the opening round game of the Maui Invitational, taking place in Vegas this year because of the COVID issues in Maui. So there you go, Will.
That may work.
So
I'll have Seton Hall. I'll say Seton Hall at 6, so we can get that done.
Okay, and I'm going to do this now since James is here and Will's here. Another segment, some more details, different details from the U of A's website, but a segment I'm going to keep y'all on here. So this segment is brought to you by the Saxenian family, Steve Saxenian, U of H alum, supporter of Folks Talking Sports. Much appreciated to him and them. But Friday night, as James and I and Andy talked about, 8 p.m., the 17th ranked Houston Cougars football team will host the Memphis Tigers. The Cougs enter Friday at 9-1 overall. Houston has won 10-plus games in a season 8 times in program history. Hold your thought, Will. Hold your thought.
Oh, thank you.
The Cougs have won 10-plus games following a losing season twice, going from 2-8 in 75 to 10-2 in 1976, and jumping from 5-7 in 2010 to 13-1 in 2011. Houston and Memphis are meeting for the 30th time in program history. Houston holds a 15-4 lead in the series, including a 7-6 mark at home. But as James has said, Memphis is on a 5-game winning streak, right, James? 5 in a row in the series. Yeah. A Houston win would move Houston to 8-0 in conference play. The Cougs have won their first 8 conference games just once, and that was in 2011. The win would move Houston's win streak to 10 consecutive, the program's longest since January 2nd to November 14th, spanning 2 seasons. In 2015, that's 11 games. They won 11 in a row. It would mark the 9th time in program history Houston has won 10-plus games, and the first since 2015. It would move Houston to 6-0 on the season at TDECU Stadium, Houston's first undefeated home regular season since 2016. It would be Houston's 7th consecutive home win, the longest streak since winning 16 straight from November 22nd, 2014 through September 16th, 2017. And it would move Houston to 16-14 against Memphis and 8-6 against the Tigers at home. Tidbit for the fans who are braving the traffic construction around the stadium. During the game, Houston Athletics will recognize the 1990 Houston football team. That season, the Cougars, led by Heisman Trophy finalist David Klingler, remember him, posted a 10-1 overall record and a 7-1 mark in the good old Southwest Conference. Fans are encouraged to take part in the Houston Athletics toy drive, drop off a new or unwrapped toy at the KHOU 11 Secret Santa toy drive tent in the tailgating area before the game or at any gate on your way in. Due to the campus construction project on Cullen Boulevard, fans are encouraged, and I mean this, please get there early, are encouraged to plan ahead and provide extra time while using alternative routes to avoid delays. I don't know how you can do it. You can't avoid delays. It's everywhere, James. Well, construction is everywhere. It's all over around campus. So as I discovered Tuesday and was reminded of it. But yes, lastly, the game day timeline. 9 a.m. Ticket office opens. 4 p.m. The cash parking lots, the kid zone, and tailgating open. 5:30 p.m. The Cougar Walk begins. 6:30 p.m. TDECU Stadium opens. 7:45 p.m. The Senior Day presentation. And of course, lastly, 8 p.m. Kickoff versus Memphis on ESPN2. That segment, once again, sponsored by the Saxenian family, Steve Saxenian and his family. Thank you very much. But Will, I know you eyes it up about the number of times Houston's won 10 games in program history. I know. The Ohio State Buckeyes probably done that every year since we were born, but whatever. So what are your thoughts on the matchup, James? Houston, Memphis. Memphis is 5-5.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. Both teams have pretty good offenses in terms they can score. Houston has a major advantage defensively. Memphis has struggled. They rank 90th in the FBS, in total defense. They've given up 29 something points a game. They've created only 8 turnovers on the season. So there's a lot of struggles on that defense. So if Houston's offense is able to put up the points they've been able to, I think Houston should win by double digits. But like I said before, Houston's always seems to be interesting. Something crazy happens, but I give a big advantage to the Cougars in this one.
And Will, this for you, Will, and James. I think back me up on this. I think it's safe to say, in terms of rivalry in the American, Houston and Memphis fans do not like each other.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. I think the respect between the programs is there, but fan bases, it's some venom. It's some venom between these two. I'm not sure where it comes from, but fan bases, Houston fans don't like Memphis fans. Memphis fans don't like Houston fans. So it's going to be a fun matchup. But Will, you heard James. He said Houston by double digits. James, do you want to do the guarantee, James?
I'm not that confident.
Okay. Will you guarantee a Houston win? You want to do that?
I'll guarantee a Houston win.
Okay, I'll take the
Guarantee.
Okay, so we got Andy and James guaranteeing a Houston win. All right, well, I'll take that. I'm like a bad luck, so I don't know if y'all want me to guarantee a win for Houston. But Will, is the game over from the Buckeyes and Xavier? Or
Yes, Xavier wins in a bit of an upset, 71-65 at the Cintas Center in Cincinnati.
And that's not, is that a rivalry? I mean, because that's
No.
a Cincinnati school and a Columbus school. That's, it's not a rivalry. No.
No, it was more so, it would be if UC were to play Ohio State. But that very rarely, if ever, will happen.
Why is that? Because UC and Xavier play, I think, in basketball every year.
They do, the crosstown shootout.
And those, boy, James, you talking about bitterness? Ooh, man, I think they had to stop it for like a year or two because of some altercations on the court, right, Will?
Yeah, there was a big altercation a few years back. Yep.
Yeah, so Cincinnati Xavier, that's in city. That is nowhere near Houston Rice. Okay, they're not far apart, but Houston Rice is no. Well, Cincinnati Xavier it's like family fighting. It's like a family feud kind of thing. It's physical, profanity laced, but it's most of the time great basketball. It's fun to watch, except when it goes sometimes too far.
Yeah.
All right. Will?
Yes, sir.
Who are the Warriors playing this evening? James, chime in on this too. We're going to talk some NBA basketball. Who are the Warriors playing this evening?
The Warriors are playing the Cleveland Cavaliers.
What's the score, Will?
Last I checked, the Cavs were up at halftime by 3, 54-51. But currently, it's tied at 55 with 8:55 left in the third quarter.
Okay. So the Warriors lost to the Hornets. They beat the Nets. That's this week. Folks, the national media forgot about or just ignored the loss to the Hornets.
Yes.
But the Warriors thumped the Nets. It's in Brooklyn. Okay. But after that win over the Nets, Golden State's back. Golden State's back. The Warriors are back. They just lost to the Hornets this week.
Thank you.
So what happens if they lose tonight to the Cavs? I'm not saying they're going to, but if they do, will they go from being back to are they not back? What is it? Help me out here, James. How does media how do they think on a national scale there, James?
Just a fluke game, probably. I mean, you won't hear much about it.
They'll ignore it, yes. And if some miracle happens, James, if the Pistons beat the Warriors tomorrow, because it'll be second night of back-to-back, all those things. But if the Pistons are woeful, I think they have 4 wins. They're 4-10, 11. I don't even know what that, but 4 wins. If they happen to beat the Warriors, I don't think the Warriors are back. I mean, you can call it what you want to call it about. Ignored them, took it for granted, let down, whatever. But if they lose to the Pistons, the Warriors aren't back. Now, when Clay gets healthy and joins the squad and they start rolling again, talk to me then. But losing to the Hornets, then beating the Brooklyn Nets, Warriors not back. That doesn't impress me at all. Whatever. So what? Just looking for a story. I know that's what they like to do. Trying to just build up interest or clicks or views or whatever kind of stuff. I don't play that game, especially in November. I couldn't care less what they do in November. What are your thoughts, Will?
I agree. It's interesting you said that because I had someone text me that exact phrase during the Brooklyn game. Oh, the Warriors are back. I said, stop it. It's 14 games in the season, and it's not even Thanksgiving yet. So please stop.
Yeah.
Please stop.
Yeah. I have a global perspective. I am media credential, all those things, but I come from a different perspective than national colleagues. Back what? They haven't won a championship. Not saying they won't this year, but they haven't. So beating Brooklyn in November, so what? I mean, big deal. That does not impress me whatsoever. And I'm not saying that the Warriors aren't playing good basketball right now, because they are, which has probably surprised some people. That's all it is. Doesn't mean they're back. James, the Wizards are what? What's the Wizards' record? 10-3, 12-3, whatever, something like that. 10-3, 10-4?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't hear anybody saying they're back.
Right.
Okay, so pick and choose here. Who's the bigger surprise? The Warriors having a winning record, or the Wizards having a winning record?
Wizards.
Yes,
for sure.
No, for that matter, the Cavs being 9-7.
That too.
Yeah.
Hell, OKC having 5 wins now?
I think they have 6.
Two of them against the Lakers?
Yes, 5 or 6. Okay. After, I guess it was game 2 and they lost to the Rockets, that OKC lineup in the first quarter or so against the Rockets looked like a G League team. Looked like they did not belong in the NBA. And now they have surprised a whole bunch of people, myself included. So, the national media, they latch on to one team and they just want to spin that story all they want. The Bulls are playing very good basketball. The Wizards have surprised the whole NBA, I think. So there are a lot of surprises going well. And unfortunately, we talk about the other end of the spectrum. I'm not sure anybody thought the Rockets would be 1-14 and being on a 13-game losing streak. I thought they would struggle, clearly. But even Will and James, you as well for this. I look back at our predictions for the season. Mm-hmm. After 20 games for the Rockets, I had them 5-15. They ain't gonna get that.
So a shot.
They got a chance, but that means winning 4 of the next 5. I don't know about that, but what are your thoughts, James? Just from the outside looking in, if you've had a chance to sit there, and are you able to watch an entire quarter of Rocket basketball without turning the channel?
It's hard. I mean, some of the lineups they're throwing out there, it's difficult to watch. Growing up in Houston, I like the Rockets, but the Thunder are my main team, so I enjoyed watching the Thunder beat up on them the other night.
How'd that happen? How are you an OKC Thunder fan?
I grew up following Kevin Durant, and he was my favorite player, so I followed him there. Now, he was dead to me once he left, but yeah.
So you're not a Brooklyn Nets fan? So KD left, you were done with KD and any team he plays for, huh?
I mean, I don't hate like the Nets, but I don't like Durant. I'm loyal to my Thunder.
Okay, that's fair. I did not know that. Learn something new. Okay. So, Will,
Yes.
your man Scoot, dealing with a thigh contusion, didn't play last night against OKC. I haven't heard the status report for the Saturday's game against the Knicks. But how do you think? How have you talked to anybody from your people in Ohio about Scoot and his struggles as a point guard with the Rockets?
No, I think with the Cavs being surprisingly hot to start the season, even with the injuries. I mean, now we'll see what happens because you have Marketing who's still out, health and safety protocol. Kevin Love just came back last night from health and safety protocol. Evan Mobley's out for potentially a month with an elbow sprain. But prior to that, the Cavs getting off to the start that they did, it's more so Darius Garland
Mm-hmm.
and what he's been able to do. And you got a little taste of it last year without Colin Sexton. Colin Sexton missed 17 games last year, and those games you got to see Darius Garland come into his own. And so that's pretty much the conversation now. The Kevin Porter Jr. trade, while at the time was a shock and was upsetting, but with the Cavs being on the run they're on right now, that's pretty much a non-discussion point anymore.
Okay. Ask you guys this question, and we're going to close it out. We're going to do an hour today. It was mentioned to me earlier when I was on with AJ Jones this afternoon about the possibility of, rumor, whatever you want to call it, about John Wall. Well, let's say the Miami Heat have interest in John Wall, but Miami is waiting for the Rockets to buy out John Wall's contract. Thoughts on that scenario? One, I have no reason to believe Rafael Stone, Rockets GM, is going to buy out John Wall's contract. That he hasn't changed from that stand in these last 6 weeks. But Coach Wall finally becoming John Wall, a player for the Miami Heat. James?
I think it goes back to what we talked about last week. If you're the Rockets, you want to take advantage of this opportunity. I don't think you buy it out, but this shows you need to play John Wall because then maybe the Heat see some value. You can work out something else where you're not having to buy out the contract because, I mean, no team's going to take a risk on him. And honestly, you can't put out a worse product than the Rockets are putting out on the court right now. So you might as well get John Wall out there, try to bring a spark to this team.
Yeah.
And then capitalize on his value if he's able to, go out there and show that, he's still got some value left.
Will?
I have a question before I answer it. Just on that buyout piece. He has the player option for next year. So are they buying out just this season because he has not or he's not able to opt in? Or what is it a situation where Rich Paul will have him opt in and they have to buy out a year and a half? How would that work?
That's a good question. I would assume Rich Paul, the smart man, that John Wall will have to opt in, take the player option, exercise the player option for that money to kick in, and then the Rockets work out a buyout based on this season and next season's salaries. Because don't give that money, give it away. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that point, Will. That's a real good point right there. So yeah, that needs to be discussed, and maybe that's what Rafael Stone was discussing about. It doesn't make sense. A buyout does not make sense for John based on that scenario.
But that being said, I'm with James. You got to play him because if I'm Miami, if I'm San Antonio, if I'm Cleveland, the Lakers, whomever, what am I trading for? Who am I trading for? I don't know. I can't give you valuable assets for an unknown quantity, and I need to see him on the court.
Agreed. And I mean, as James said, the Rockets, they can't get any worse. Okay, they're 1-14. If you play John Wall for 2 weeks, and let's do it like this: publicly announce John Wall's going to play for us. He's going to take 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it is, to get into basketball shape. Then he's going to play for a month, whatever, up until the trading deadline. And then before the deadline, we are going to work out a trade for John and for the betterment of John and for us. What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
I think that makes sense. Because if John plays for a month, the Rockets are not going to go 13-0 and get back to 500 with John Wall playing. That ain't happening. And if you're afraid of winning too many games, you know what you do? John, we're going to play you for a first quarter, half, and send him down. You go out there, prove you're in shape, prove you're healthy. Thank you very much. Now we're going to play the youngsters to lose. Okay. I mean, what's wrong with that? I think that makes sense. But sight unseen, no NBA team, I think, is going to be that desperate to trade you anything of value for Coach Wall.
Agreed.
So I think that's where we are. I'm not sure why the Rockets agreed to this situation of paying him to sit, but this is where we are. But we're going to wrap it up right there. So James, you first. How can folks find you on social media?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at JDM2186, and then all my work is at thedailycougar.com.
And Will, how can folks find you on social media?
Thank you. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Will Gibson7 and Facebook, Will Knows, the Will Knows Facebook page. And
I'm Chris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review, HoustonRoundballReview.com, Houston Roundball Review on YouTube, and also Instagram. Thank you for tuning in, joining us for another edition of Folks Talking Sports, sponsored by the Saxenian family. Rocket fans who are tuning in, who have tuned in, be patient. Another Rockets Talk live stream show take place this Saturday. Though I'm not sure if it's going to be 8 p.m. Central Time or 9 p.m. Central. Depends what time I get done with Rockets Knicks post-game stuff, which will be posted on Houston Roundball Review on YouTube. But get ready. We're either going to be discussing a 14th straight loss or the end of a losing streak. So get ready, tuning in on the live stream. Let's Talk Rockets on Saturday, 8 or 9 p.m. Thank you as always for tuning in to this edition of Folks Talking Sports. Guys, take care. See you next time.